Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're putting down the market reports and the political analysis and picking up a fork instead. We are embarking on a truly delicious deep dive into what's pretty much universally seen as the jewel of Czech gastronomy. Svíčková na smetaně.
It's a fantastic topic, and our mission today really is to peel back the layers. You know, the history, the culinary rigor surrounding this one dish. We're not just reading a recipe. We want to show you the deep cultural meaning and honestly, the surprising sort of scientific precision needed to get it right.
Okay, let's start with the absolute basics. If you saw this on a menu and needed a literal translation, what are you actually ordering?
Literally, you're ordering beef sirloin and cream sauce, but honestly, that translation barely scratches the surface. It's almost, well, insulting to the dish's complexity. Svíčková is the definitive national dish of the Czech Republic, no question. But its whole identity, its soul, rests entirely on the sauce. It's the slow-cooked, root vegetable-based masterpiece. And it just perfectly embodies the Czech philosophy of flavor harmony, that perfect balance, you know, savory, sweet, and sour.
And that philosophy, it has incredibly deep roots, right? We know from historical records, the origins go way, way back. Bohemian Kingdom, maybe 14th or 15th centuries.
Yeah, somewhere around then. And back then, it wasn't strictly sirloin. They were slow cooking whatever meats were available, maybe venison, and combining them with these really hearty root vegetables and, crucially, sour cream. It was driven by necessity.
That humble start is key, I think. But the dish as we know it today, the more refined version, that evolved later, say 18th, 19th centuries.
Exactly. That was during the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And Czech cooks, they started blending their own robust, local Bohemian ingredients with, let's say, more highbrow French culinary techniques.
Okay, so this is where the refinement really kicks in. When you say French influence, what specifically changed? Was it just about making it fancier?
It was about technique. The critical shift was adopting the à la crème method. Before that, the sauce might have been, well, a bit rustic, maybe heavy. The French technique brought refinement. It taught how to elevate that humble sour cream base into something silky smooth, consistent, stable. It basically took that hearty farm stew and transformed it into a refined, almost aristocratic main course. Really set the stage for its high status.
And let's just be clear on the name itself, because that tells a story too, doesn't it? Svíčková refers to the cut of meat.
Right, the high-quality cut, the sirloin or tenderloin, and smetaně.
That's the defining element, the sour cream.
Exactly. The luxurious sour cream. The name itself is like a declaration of the key ingredients, the quality.
It announces those two indispensable components right away.
Okay, precisely.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How did this meal go from being, a home-cooked specialty to this absolute national standard bearer? Because that happened pretty fast, historically speaking.
Yeah.
Can we actually pinpoint when it got standardized?
We absolutely can. And it really comes down to one woman and one incredibly influential book. The first known written recipe for svíčková shows up in 1826. It's in Kniha Kuchařka, the Czech cookbook written by the legendary Magdalena Dobromila Retiková.
Wow. It's amazing that one cookbook author back in 1826 basically locked down the blueprint for a dish that's been central to celebrations for, 2 centuries now?
She really did. And her genius was in that standardization. Retigová's version, it established that non-negotiable balance, the sweetness from the root veg, the tang from the cream. She set the template that chefs, well, they still follow it today, more or less. And the sources back this up. Its prestige was immediate. You look at the 19th century Czech gastronomic archives. They record svíčková being served often in aristocratic Bohemian homes. It was a mark of sophistication.
And what's fascinating, too, is that it wasn't just kept within Bohemia, was it? It spread.
Oh, definitely. The Czech National Museum of Food Culture actually documents how it spread across Europe. And often under this rather sophisticated name, Bohemian cream sauce.
Yeah.
It really proved that Czech cuisine, even with its farm roots, could absolutely stand shoulder to shoulder with the refined dishes coming out of places like Vienna or Paris.
But while it had that prestige abroad, its importance back home sounds much more personal, intimate.
Absolutely. For Czech families, svíčková is really about continuity. It's the meal you have on Sundays, on holidays, and especially at weddings. It's the dish that just tastes like home, like memory.
There's that common saying, isn't there? Something like, svíčková belongs to every true celebration.
It absolutely does. And this feeling, this culinary identity. It became politically and culturally really important after 1918, when the Czech Republic gained its independence. Suddenly, this dish wasn't just Sunday dinner anymore. It became a national culinary symbol. It embodied Bohemian pride, reflecting both those deep historical roots and the technical sophistication of the new nation. It's quite literally the taste of identity and home-cooked comfort, all distilled into one complex sauce.
Okay, it sounds like for a dish carrying that much weight, family weight, national weight, there's absolutely zero room for shortcuts in the kitchen. Let's get into the technical side now. If someone listening wants to attempt this at home, what's the level of precision we're talking about? Is it forgiving?
Forgiving. Not really. It's a technical test, honestly. Svíčková demands patience, and it demands exactitude. You start with the beef sirloin. It must be marinated first, then seared properly. And only then is it slowly roasted or maybe stewed with those essential aromatics. Root vegetables, bay leaves, black pepper, some lemon peel, and a little touch of vinegar. Every single ingredient plays a precise role.
Okay, hold on. If the meat's already high quality, like a good sirloin, why the intense marinade?
Yeah.
Like 12 to 24 hours. Isn't that an overkill?
Not at all. Not for Svíčková. That marinade, it's the entire foundation for the flavor profile. If you skip it or rush it, you basically ruin the final dish. It's that critical. You're not just tenderizing the meat, though that happens too. You are building the deep flavor that will later define the sauce itself. The marinade is usually a mix of diced root vegetables, spices, bay leaf, and that crucial acid, the vinegar. That time allows all those flavors to really penetrate the sirloin. Then, when the meat cooks low and slow, we're talking 2, maybe 3 hours, those pre-flavored juices are released back into the cooking liquid, and boom, you have this incredible flavor base to build on.
Right, so the slow cooking is key. Not just for tenderness, but to pull all that subtle flavor out of the vegetables, too. And speaking of the vegetables, this is where the precision really kicks in, I gather. There's a specific, almost sacred ratio involved for the sauce base.
Ah, yes. This is the moment that really separates, let's say, a professional Svíčková from just a generic beef stew. You absolutely must stick to the golden proportion. 2 parts carrot to 1 part celery root to 1 part parsley root, by weight usually.
2, 1, 1, 1. Okay. Why that specific ratio? What happens if I just, use a bunch of carrots I have lying around, or maybe too much celery root? What's the consequence?
It throws everything off. If you lean too heavily on the carrots, the sauce becomes cloyingly sweet. It loses its complexity. If you overdo the celery root or the parsley root, the sauce turns too earthy, maybe even a little bitter. That 2.1.1 ratio ensures the perfect equilibrium. You get the right amount of sweetness, the right earthiness, and that subtle, savory depth. You absolutely have to nail that foundational flavor before you even think about adding the cream.
That really is culinary science in action, isn't it? Okay, so the meat is cooked perfectly, the flavor is extracted from the magic vegetable ratio. How do we get from that cooking liquid to the famous, luxurious, velvety cream sauce?
Right, that's the final act. Sauce mastery time. First, you take the meat out to rest, very important. Then, you take all those beautifully cooked root vegetables and you puree them directly into the remaining cooking stock. This is crucial. The pureed vegetables themselves, not flour, provide the natural thickness and body for the sauce. It's a vegetable thickened sauce. After blending it smooth, you usually strain it for extra silkiness. Then, and here's the absolute key trick for that smetaně finish, the sour cream must be added off the heat.
Off the heat? Why? What happens if you don't?
Disaster. Well, okay, maybe not disaster, but
Yeah.
if you add sour cream or even heavy cream directly into boiling or very hot liquid, the heat causes the protein molecules in the cream to seize up almost instantly. And the result? A curdled, grainy, really unpleasant texture. You've ruined the silkiness. So you have to let the sauce cool down just slightly, then gently stir in the cream to maintain that perfect emulsion. The goal, the benchmark, is a sauce that coats the back of a spoon. Silky, smooth, rich, but definitely never heavy or gloppy.
That sounds like quite an achievement when you get it right. Okay, so magnificent sauce finished, sirloin sliced, the presentation completes the picture. And it's always served with nedlíky, right? For anyone listening who hasn't had them, what exactly are nedlíky? Are they like German dumplings?
Ah, good question. They are the perfect vehicle for this sauce, but they're different from, say, heavy potato dumplings. Czech nedlíky, especially the ones served with svíčková, are typically yeast-risen, steamed bread dumplings. They're light, they're fluffy, slightly porous. Honestly, they feel purpose-built to be the ideal sponge, to soak up every single drop of that beautiful svíčková sauce. The pairing is just non-negotiable, really.
Okay, bread dumplings, got it. And then comes the really unique garnish, the critical finishing touch known as the Svíčková trio. This is where I have to pause because on paper it sounds, well, a bit jarring. You have this rich, savory beef dish, and right next to it on the plate is a slice of lemon, a spoonful of cranberry jam-like, sweet jam, and a dollop of whipped cream. Unsweetened whipped cream, usually.
Usually unsweetened, yes. And does it work? It doesn't just work, it's essential. That trio is the physical, edible manifestation of that whole Czech philosophy of flavor harmony we talked about.
Sure.
And you are absolutely meant to combine them in one bite. You take a bit of the meat, the sauce, the dumpling, and then you get a little bit of that lemon for the sharp, sour acid, the cranberry jam for that potent, almost tart sweetness, and the whipped cream for a cool, creamy element. All of that alongside the deep, savory richness of the meat and the vegetable sauce.
So it's not just decoration, it's like a required component of the bite. If I skip the cranberry, say, what am I losing?
You're losing the complete experience. You're losing the soul of the dish, arguably. Svíčková is built on that incredible savory, earthy base, yes. But the full experience, the reason it's so beloved, is only complete when all four elements, savory, sweet, sour, and creamy, hit your palate basically at the same time. It's the contrast. That's what cleanses the palate between bites and makes the dish endlessly appealing. It ensures that the richness never becomes overwhelming.
Okay, I'm convinced. It's fascinating, too, that this dish isn't just about flavor and tradition, but it's also about technical competence. Our sources mention that in Czech culinary schools, actually making svíčková is considered a real rite of passage, a technical test of skill.
Oh, absolutely. It demands coordinating multiple, quite high-level techniques all at once. You've got the precise vegetable ratios, the timing of that long marinade, the specific low and slow roasting or stewing method, and then that very careful emulsion of the final cream sauce. You have to demonstrate both patience and exactitude in every single step to pass the test. It shows you understand foundational Czech technique.
So if we tie all these threads together, the history, the technique, the cultural weight, what's the ultimate philosophical takeaway from Svíčková and the smetaně? What does it mean?
I think Svíčková really embodies the Czech spirit of balance and patience. It perfectly reflects that unity of, on one hand, historical farm tradition, those humble, plentiful root vegetables, and on the other, that adopted, refined French technique, maybe representing the aristocracy or a higher level of cuisine. It's a unification, in a way, of class and cuisine through technique and history. One of our sources put it beautifully, I thought. Svíčková is more than a meal. It's the story of the Czech soul written in sauce.
That is a really powerful way to put it. So just to recap, we traced Svíčkova's journey from its maybe 14th century Bohemian roots. We saw how that 19th century a la creme technique really elevated it. We discovered the non-negotiable 2-to-1-to-1 vegetable ratio, carrots, celery root, parsley root, and we learned the crucial trick, adding the sour cream off the heat for that flawless, silky finish.
Exactly. And ultimately, Svíčková is just this wonderful testament to an enduring truth in Czech cuisine, and maybe cuisine generally. Perfection isn't usually found in just expensive luxury ingredients alone. It's found in a commitment to balance, to patience, and to that meticulous attention to detail that really only comes from a deep love of tradition and process.
That concept of patience, it really does feel like the defining ingredient here, doesn't it? It makes you think, doesn't it? How many of our modern national dishes, maybe the ones that truly define the flavor of home for people or capture historical identity, how many of them still rely entirely on hours of quiet, slow labor and that kind of culinary precision, not just a quick 20-minute recipe you find online? It raises a question, perhaps, about whether we're sometimes losing a taste of our own history when we prioritize speed above everything else, above that slow transformation of simple ingredients into something profound.
That's a very provocative thought to end on. Something to chew on, definitely.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the jewel of Bohemia. Until next time, stay curious.